Hello, everyone, and welcome into Jeff Rich, live from Phoenix here on Central City Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Rich, and each week I'm joined by a great guest from the area. And in this case, and I told you, Adam, before I invited you on, I'm not necessarily going to have the most famous guests every week, but I'm going to have great guests. And, we used to chat in a very unofficial capacity about sports. I think I took you out of your office and out of the work mode when I'd hang out with you down in your commercial space. And you are not just a guy that knows a lot about sports, but you know a lot about tailgating and everything that comes with that. You have a group called the CRAFTY Devils, and I'm going to title you as the co-founder.
That'd be somewhat accurate, yep.
So welcome in, Adam Blomker. Minnesota roots, but very strong roots here in the Valley as well.
Yeah, lived here for 35 years now, so, this is home for me, but, thankfully, not necessarily thankfully, but I've managed to hold on to some of my Minnesota teams and kind of have a crossover with some Arizona teams as far as my fandom goes, and that, the Sunday ticket, I get to see the Vikings play every week, so that works out great. And
Does it?
This weekend it did.
It did. Hey, Detroit has got to be in one of the almanacs as the most frequent loser of 19 to 17 games. Because you saw when they got beat on the record kick by Justin Tucker.
What's the most painful way you can think of to lose is like an NFL record-setting kick that goes off the crossbar and through. Like when you've done everything to beat a really good Baltimore Ravens team, at home you're building like, yes, we're going to get this done. No, Justin Tucker shows up and just.
Is there a more reliable guy? I mean, I would even throw Gostowski and Vinatieri at his peak, and I would rather have Justin Tucker.
I can't disagree with you. I mean, the guy's a machine.
He is. And I always believe, I know that there's a thing called recency bias where you tend to say, okay, I just watched this. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened. But I buy into it a little bit when I'm comparing not different years, not a short period of time such like as 5 years. But when you're talking about like Jordan and LeBron, there's a lot of advantages that you give to the more recent guy just because of evolution. And these guys get stronger and get better training programs and learn more about how to defend their opponent, in sports that applies to.
Yeah, and it's funny because you see look, I think Dan Campbell's a good coach. From what I've seen, I mean, the Lions are making some improvements. They're not the where you walk all over them like you have in years past. I mean, they're a good team. I mean, like I said, Baltimore on the ropes should have beat the Vikings today. They've had some opportunity. They came back against the 49ers. Again, these are all pretty good teams. What we believe are good teams anyway, and. They just can't get over the hump, and it's like the press conference with Dan Campbell after the thing today. It's like, I mean, he's getting emotional and stuff like that. It's like, just get a win for the guy. I almost kind of want, just not against us. Beat the Packers now, whenever we play them next.
Right. I see. I look at their 0-5, and I think about all those games that they really came close to winning, and then I look at Jacksonville, and that's a true dog shit 0-5.
They're bad. They're so bad. I mean, about the only thing you can say is they score some points. They can put some points on board. They can't stop a thing. It doesn't seem like. I don't know what Urban Meyer's plan there is. Well, I don't know if he's, if his plan is SC, but
it's more the plan for what Shad Khan and everybody's going to do after the fact. After these guys are gone and out the door, which has to happen soon. Not maybe in 2021, but maybe calendar year 2022, very early in the year after. Because there's no point in replacing an 0-11 coach with a guy that's going to go 0-6 down the stretch, because that just puts you deeper in a hole with another guy.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't something we're doing it earlier, helps recruiting or something like that, or whatever. But I mean, I think it's like if you see the wrong guys there, then move on. Right. It's kind of with anything. If you don't have the right people in the right spots, the sooner you can reconcile that with yourself and realize that you made a mistake and start to correct it, the better off you're going to be.
Do you have anything against Urban Meyer personally? I mean, I kind of stopped being an Ohio State fan when he came along. It became a different brand of Big Ten football for me.
No, I don't necessarily have anything against him personally. I remember him from Utah, and that was kind of a cool story there. Kind of taking a program that really before they were in the Pac-12, obviously, building that program up, and going to went to the Sugar Bowl.
The Fiesta Bowl when they beat Pitt, and we had to take Pitt because they were the Big East champion, even though they were like 8-4.
Yeah, and so and that was great. And then he gets the big gig at Florida, and of course turns them back into a powerhouse. Really they hadn't been since Spurrier was there, and just really went on his run. And he does kind of seem a bit of a shady guy. I don't really get into. I don't know that much.
I think it's a prerequisite in the SEC.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I don't have strong feelings about him one way or another. I guess I don't really care for him. I think he kind of keeps digging himself into holes that he doesn't really have good answers to. And he doesn't really take responsibility for it yet. It happened, but it was okay. And we're going to move on. We're going to get past that.
I think you're more so even with the administrative control, the front office control that he has. He's more just a cog in the machine. Where he's the CEO when he's in Columbus or in Gainesville.
You run everything. You're it. That's and I think the stuff you're seeing now doesn't fly. In the NFL. It's always kind of the toughest thing is going college to NFL. You see it all the time with coaches. It doesn't work out well the majority of the time, because it's just such a different structure. You're going from coaching young men, 18 to maybe 22, 23, to coaching guys that are making a lot more money than you. Grown men, these are full-fledged adults. They got families, they got livelihoods, they got businesses outside of football. This is work for them now. They don't need to be handheld. You're not going to dictate to them. Like you do like you can in college, really. I mean, these guys are still wide-eyed and looking at you like, especially you got a bunch of rings on your fingers,
You're right.
That carries a lot of cash, I think you get to the NFL, it's more about, look, you got to show, you got to show me. I'm not going to follow you just blindly because.
All right, so that being said, the Cardinals are 5-0 here. They are really not much of an argument to it. They're the best team in the NFL. It doesn't matter who they play. They find ways to win. Do they do it pretty? Not every week, but they are finding ways, and this is, if they were losing, it would be an indictment on the Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray dream, but because it's working, you've got to give credit where credit is due. Are we going to see more of these air raid type of college coaches make that jump? And Cliff seems to have handled it, but I would give a lot of credit to Vance Joseph, especially what we've seen out of this defense over the last couple of weeks.
Well, absolutely, and I think the things the Cardinals have done well is they won games in different ways. It's a kind of if a team takes you out of what you want to do, can you still manage to find a way to win the game? You think it's Kyler and the weapons all around him, from D-Hop and Chase Edmonds, and you bring in John Connor and AJ Green, Kirk, it goes on and on, right? DJ Moore, all those guys, and you got weapons everywhere. But if they take the weight, today was a grind. Today was a battle. It wasn't. There was no flashy offense really getting. No one was blazing up and down the field, so the defense had to show up and had to really make their presence known and be a factor and win the game that way. And they did, and it was impressive showing. And the guy that you mentioned there, Vance Joseph, probably not getting as much as it. He is getting credit. I've heard his name come up quite a bit on some broadcasts and stuff like that. But probably I don't think quite getting as much credit as maybe he should, just because they brought in the big names, Watt and
keeping Chandler Jones.
For
now.
And but Vance Joseph has made just such a huge impact on that team. I think really just from a maturity level, even he brings a stabilized force there on the defensive side. That he's been around this league and he's done it everywhere, and bred success all over the place.
So Trey Lance didn't exactly go out and grab this starting job away from Jimmy Garoppolo. Playing quarterback in the National Football League is a challenge, and just because you move on from the guy that maybe hasn't lived up to your expectations and go with somebody new that's got a very, very high ceiling, being drafted very young, youngest quarterback I believe to start a game this year, if not in all of NFL history. But Trey Lance did not have an easy go of it with dealing with this Cardinals defense.
Yeah, they got after him right from the get-go, and they did some nice things for him. Just did some things that he does best. Get him running the football a little bit, designed runs, things where he's get him some easy here's a hole, hit it, and do what your athletic ability, take over. Let that take over and do what you do. And so, then he started to make some nice throws. He doesn't throw the prettiest ball I've ever seen. It's a lot of wobble in that ball there. But I think first NFL start, you're right there with what said is the best team in the NFL. And battling right down to the end. That's not too bad of a report card, I think, at the end of the day when you look at it.
It's certainly a better debut than Justin Fields had against Cleveland a couple of weeks ago.
Exactly. He had a great day today, though. He had a very nice game today against the Raiders. Maybe more the defense of the Bears had a great day today. But
so the Lions lost ground on everybody in the NFC North because the Vikings were victorious, obviously. Packers got away. Mason Crosby. Didn't the Packers have a good kicker? Since Adam Longwell?
Yeah, Mason Crosby.
Or Ryan Longwell?
Yeah, Mason Crosby's been ice, right? I mean, he's just automatic. You put him out there, it just goes through. This is what happens. Missed 3 straight today. In the last 10 minutes of the game. And I mean, good on him. Hits the game winner, I guess. As a Vikings fan, it pains me anytime the Packers win. So I didn't. It was really Cincinnati. Just come on, man. Just one time. Just make one of those field goals on your own at the end.
He had all these misses in him, but he didn't bring those misses to the opener.
Yeah.
Where, probably best case scenario if they miss at the end, that's a tie game for Minnesota.
Yeah.
It was a great way to open your season, by the way. Yeah. Hey, the Sun Devils open their season great, and when they play in cities that serve real alcohol. They're undefeated. They did lose a game at BYU, and you told me, you told the whole world via social media that it was the soberest you ever were for a football game.
Oh, by far. Since my teenage years, for sure. I mean, that was Provo's an interesting place. I mean, if you just want to go down, it makes you appreciate what you have. That you can go outside and walk into a bar and get a beer. Because you just can't do that out there. It's just not a thing.
The scenes from the stadium there, I believe it's named after Lavelle Edwards. The scenes from the stadium there look just absolutely beautiful. And I don't know if you brought the camera equipment. You do amateur photography in your spare time?
Yep, I did not bring any camera equipment with me. It would have been a good one to do since I was so sober. And I normally don't bring it because to the football games because. The incidents can happen. So I don't. But that one would have been a great one to bring it to. I don't think I've been to a prettier view in the stadium and the surrounding vista around it is just it's gorgeous. It was great to go see, and I was glad I did it. And I crossed that one off, and I'm never going back.
Have you done Rice Eccles?
I have not done Rice Eccles, so that's one of 3 that I have not been to in the Pac-12. Them, Oregon State, and Washington State.
Okay, pretty small stadiums, times 3 there.
Yeah. So I was going to try to knock Oregon State off this year, but we got some things at work that I got to deal with, so I'm not sure going to make it up there, but hopefully someday soon here.
I had grandiose dreams for this month of October, and I traveled twice. In the last 3 weeks, I've gone to Chicago. I've gone to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm like, you know what? October 10th, Los Angeles, they're playing the Chargers. I think I'd like to go to that one. But after, traveling twice, 2 weekends out of 3, I like being right here at home. And I was able to watch them on the split screen. I was watching the Niners-Cardinals on one side, and I was watching the Browns and the Chargers on the other side. And I'll tell you what, that Browns-Chargers game, if you don't have a dog in the fight, you were telling me right before we went on, what a game to watch.
It's one of the more entertaining games of the year, I think. I mean, it was just back and forth, and it wasn't like it was just bad, sloppy game. No, this was just execution.
It wasn't watching Northern Illinois play Toledo on a Wednesday night in November.
No, this was fun. Yeah, this wasn't MACtion at its finest, right? This was just good football teams. I think they're 2 really good football teams. I think certainly. I think you can put both of them probably in the top 6 teams in the NFL right now. I said both absolutely are there. So, and it was big playmakers making big plays all over the place, and it was that fourth quarter was is it 42 points scored in the fourth quarter?
It was something like that. Yeah.
Like wow.
Oh yeah. Well, you know there were a lot of big plays in the game, and you have to have those, in order for the game to go over. Because I think the final was 47-42 in favor of the Chargers, and they'd missed an extra point at the end that they thought that they'd made, so they thought they were up by 7, and then right before the ensuing kickoff, they learned that that they reviewed it, and it wasn't like in an official capacity. The booth just buzzed down and said he ain't in.
Right, yeah. It was funny because I was actually, as I was telling you, my fantasy team, I was going against Eckler, which that was the first time I've seen a defense pull the opponent into the end zone when he did not want to go, against his will.
Right.
To force him to score. And of course, hurting my fantasy football team even more. And then, of course, he got the 2-point conversion. I was like, oh, it's just killing me. And then all of a sudden it came off, and I was like, yeah. I looked back at the screen and I was trying to figure out what happened. Yeah,
so you went from an 80% win percentage to
down to 50-50, and then I was actually like just under that with that 2-point conversion. I went back to 50-50. So I need a big night tonight from the Bills and Chiefs. I need lots of points tonight.
Lots of points. So you don't have either defense.
I have Josh Allen, Kelsey, and Watkins.
All right. So from that 2018 draft, since you brought up Josh Allen, you had Lamar Jackson, you had Baker Mayfield. And I want to say that there was one other first rounder that maybe kind of didn't pan out already. But I look at that draft, and of course everybody, Mitchell Trubisky for the rest of his life is going to be compared at least to Mahomes. I don't know that the Watson conversation is going to go on for too much longer, though Houston just kind of seems to live in a purgatory over that. Yeah,
well, I mean, that's such a. I can't believe that the NFL hasn't done something in there in that situation. I mean, it's just a nightmare in that they're like Houston. You just figure it out,
right?
Like we're not helping you out. We're not bailing you out in any way here. Like this is. Yeah, we're just going to sit over here and be quiet.
I think they felt that they got their hands really dirty with Ray Rice right in the beginning, and they really just want the courts to figure out these things out and not be arbiters of ethical code.
And the one actually I was surprised with there that the Watson situation kind of created was the beginning of the year with Tyrod Taylor, and he looked actually really pretty darn good. You had really no idea what Houston was going to be without Watson. And I mean, everyone's left there in the last few years as far as their weapons and stuff go. Tyrod came out, and I mean, he was, the first couple games really playing well, I thought, and really had Houston in games that, you'd have thought these were big lines, and he's, they're battling right to the end, so.
Well, he's lost his job to, I mean, it wasn't really Josh Allen, in an indirect way it was Josh Allen, but Baker Mayfield. He lost his job to Justin Herbert, and like under bizarre circumstances. Mm-hmm. He gets hurt in the second or third game of the season for Cleveland in 2018. But his own trainer punctured his leg, and it's like, oh shit, the call's coming from inside the house.
Right. Yeah, that was What like, dude? What are you doing? Like, right. How did that happen? Some guys are just snake bitten like that, though. I mean, it's just like they just you think it's going right, and then it's just like the dumbest thing happens and just blows it for them.
And it happens a lot. If it was easy, everybody'd play in the fucking NFL.
Exactly.
Right? So I was actually up early at 6 this morning by accident, and I even more accidentally started watching Matt Ryan and the Falcons playing the New York Jets over in that Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
NFL in London, NFL in the UK, I guess maybe. Like, who doesn't love it, right? I mean, I don't know. This is something I forget to put. If I don't lock my lineup in, it's I'm gonna wake up and I have guys on the bench that are already playing. It's like, oh damn it. But I mean, other than that, it's like I don't get it. I don't know. It's not really my thing. But whatever.
It's not mine either. Browns actually played the Vikings, so we had stake in the game a couple of years ago. This is the 2017 season where I know that Minnesota won because the Browns failed to achieve victory all 16 times out that year.
My only thing that I really enjoyed from the game today was apparently the Falcons forgot to bring their kicking net over there. I don't know if you caught that.
No.
So they had no kicking net for their punter and place kicker to practice with, so they got 2 ladders and took a soccer net and hung it over them, and that was their kicking net because they forgot to pack that up on the way over.
You need to cue up the Benny Hill music when they're running their makeshift kicking net out. Of course.
You're in a place where all they do is kick the ball, and you don't have something we can kick this into. Like, come on,
couldn't bring the whole net.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so the big story: if the Cardinals weren't 5-0 at this point, and the only undefeated team in the NFL still. Alabama went down to Texas A&M in prime time on the SEC on CBS, and really it was Texas A&M that almost let the game go. Alabama was chasing them basically the whole time out.
The one great thing about ASU playing on Friday night, probably the only really good thing that comes out of that, is then I get all Saturday to sit at home watching games, and it was quite an actual Saturday to sit at home watch games. There were a lot of great ones. That one included. I was texting my friend. I have a good buddy that graduated from A&M. And I texted them when they were up 14 or 17, I think, and then I was like, you guys got to, finish this off. Which, of course, was a kiss of death because Alabama immediately scores 2 touchdowns and ties the game up. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm like, but literally, like, all of college football is rooting for your team right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like everyone in the country is on your side. I'm like, just finish this
Except
game.
for those that have a hard-on for Johnny Manziel once they saw him. They're like, oh, the fuck
yeah. Maybe Texas fans aren't. Okay, maybe UT fans.
What an epic day that could have been, because I was looking at the logistics of it. It'd be tight because, it's difficult to do that last half mile when you're going into college football games, as it was for us on Friday night when the Sun Devils hosted Stanford. But I was looking at it, and if I'd have been in Texas one weekend later, we could have gone to the fair in the morning, caught the 11 a.m. kickoff between Texas and Oklahoma. Now, I know that game had over 100 points scored at it, so, it's probably over 4 hours at that point. But, if you get out of there at 3:30, it's about a 3-hour drive out to College Station, and you could have seen both Texas, Oklahoma, and A&M versus Alabama under the lights on the same day. That would be the most epic sports day.
You'd have saw 2 unbelievable games, that's for sure. The fact that A&M got to finish it off was fantastic. They rushed the field. Johnny Manziel rushed the field.
Yes,
with everybody, because that's what you.
I didn't know that he left Scottsdale anymore.
Why would you? So that was awesome. I spent all the day. It seemed like all morning or whatever watching the Red River rivalry. Or shootout, I don't know what they call it now. But anyway,
I think that one is supposed to be politically incorrect, but
I think the shootout is wrong.
I'll be a monkey's uncle if I could tell you which
I think
one.
It's the 3 R's now. But anyway, and so it was like, spent all morning going, Texas is back, and it's like, oh no, you're not. No, you're not back. You're still Texas. Never mind. You're still fine. I keep on looking at the Oklahoma team, going, God, you're just not good. You're just not good. All right, you're supposed to be like one of the 4 best teams in the country, or 3 best teams in the country. Maybe you're just not good. It's like you're just waiting for you to. Someone's got to be able to finish them at some point. But
I just crossed Spencer Rattler off my Heisman ballot. Okay?
Yeah, there you go.
I don't actually have a Heisman vote, but it would have long since been crossed off.
Well, you got crossed off on the depth chart. You got Lincoln Riley just moved his name right underneath Campbell or whatever was the kid's name. I forget the other kid's name that came in, but yeah.
Well, we had a long Friday night. We did not end our night when the clock went to 0 at ASU Stanford. It felt like it was a feel-good type of night. And I'm going to tell you that game on Friday night. By the way, I got there a little late. Little brisket tacos that we had at the CRAFTY Devil's Tailgate.
We had some pulled pork, some little Mexican seasoned pulled pork for this. It was the taco bar. It was the protein for the taco bar this week. So yeah.
What are your 3 mainstays? You get 3 games to plan a meal for at the tailgate, and it's awesome, folks. Big tent. We got craft beers from places I'm not even sure it's legal to import it from at this tailgate, and they ask for a donation, and it's well worth the time. But Adam takes care of the meats. So sometimes you got to prep on Friday night when you have a standard Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening game.
Yeah. So we we're out there every week up in the north lot there, and you kind of ease into the season because the tailgates tend to get bigger and bigger as the year goes along. So I don't tend to really break out the big stuff until SC is going to be a big game. U of A is going to always be a big game and stuff like that. So we'll have plenty of brisket and ribs and maybe some pulled pork or some various little fun snacks and stuff with people who get there early and that kind of thing that will make up for those. The one that's kind of got me stuck this year is Washington State, because we're going to see a punk band the night before.
Okay.
On Friday night. And like you say, normally I'm cooking this stuff beginning on Friday and overnight, or getting it really early on Saturday and cooking.
It's not the Oakley Doakleys, is it?
No.
Are you familiar?
I am not.
It's a Ned Flanders cover band, but they dress like Flanders, but they play heavy metal music.
Gotcha. Now this is a band called Idols from the UK, and we've seen them a number of times, and they are an incredible band to see, and so we're going to see them the night before, and it's going to be loud. I'm sure my ears are going to be ringing, and I may have a beverage or two that night, and then I don't know how. I don't know how I'm going to get up in the morning to cook anything or what we're going to do. PJ, the other half of the Crafty Devils, is like maybe hot dogs. Like, I don't know. We're going to have to. It's going to be. We're going to be.
Why don't we lower the bar a little bit? Why don't we do some hot pockets?
Exactly. I'm like that. We might have the first party subs that we ever serve at the game.
That's outstanding. I've like I said, I've had a great time there over the years. I mean, it's really you that made the Riches Sun Devil fans, just from just being around you. The aura that fans like you emanate. It makes it hard to resist at least being part of the game day experience. And we've got one Division I FBS football team in town, so I'm going to check that out as often as I can, as long as I don't exhaust myself doing like yard work or something. It's not necessarily appointment viewing, but I really think it should be. And I'm sitting there, I was really doubting ASU going into this one. Standard, it just felt like one of those games that they tend to lose. It
is, absolutely. I mean, and that's the if you're a Sun Devil fan, you fear expectations more than anything, because it seems like anytime the team starts to play well, or expectations get put upon them, that's instant failure for us. It happens constantly. You beat Notre Dame in 2014, get to, I think we're number 4 or 5 or something like that in the country, go to Oregon State, who is awful, and you get thumped by them. Like, what? How do you do that? That doesn't make any sense, and it happens,
Well, last year, the two California, both the USC game and the UCLA game were Sun Devil wins, and you kind of look at it, you're like, well, what could they have really done differently? And it's just like not be victims of just sheer bad luck.
Yeah, I mean, the USC game obviously was just a tough pill to swallow. You give up 2 touchdowns so late there to blow that one. UCLA game was such a weird one because we hadn't played in a month due to COVID stuff, and that. So we had a month from the time we played our first game of the year. Then we play UCLA here, and we just got off which, I mean, looking back, makes a lot of sense. Like, yeah, we got off to a really slow start. Like, the first half we basically were non-existent, and then came out the second half and made a game, and then really, just kind of from the opening kickoff the second half really took off. So. Looking back, it's just those are 2 opportunities though that got away from you that you can't let happen. And so, the one thing that is great, I think, this team has had a lot of guys that have been in some big games. They've experienced that, but they've also experienced winning games. And a lot of guys on this team were there when we beat number 3 Oregon. They're there when we went to Michigan State and beat them. They've been able to go into hostile environments and win on the road. They've been able to take care of business when they had to. And, that's what they got to do this weekend up in Utah. A team that always seems to play us tough. A team that seems to be figuring their season out right now. They had kind of 2 bad losses. I mean, they lost to the same BYU team we did, obviously, and they lost to San Diego State. But, in that game is when they made their switch at quarterback. And since he's taken over, he's been the most efficient passer in the Pac-12. He's number 1 in quarterback efficiency rating there. So, they're coming in here after just absolutely steamrolling USC. Right. I mean, I don't know if you watched the game, but I mean, it didn't seem like USC was really ever in that game. It was a very short period where they were really, hanging around, and Utah just imposed their will.
I think by Saturday night it ended about the time that the Giants' chances to beat the Dodgers ended. It was a 7-2 game. I think it ended up being a 9-2 final. No dog in the fight this year. So what are you doing with baseball?
No dog in the fight. So I am get to be a fan. So I love going to San Francisco and going to the park there. It's one of my favorite ballparks in baseball. It is my favorite ballpark in baseball to go to. So I kind of adopted the Giants a little bit in the NL. I also wouldn't hate to see Milwaukee. Look, I mean, how do you not love the Brewers? Euchre. It's Euchre. I mean, give me more Euchre. Just give me all the Bob Euchre. That's all I want. Let him do the games. I just want to hear Bob Euchre. Yeah. So, I'm pulling for San Francisco. Not necessarily because I hate LA. I'm not one of those people like in Arizona. I hate LA for whatever reason.
I'm one of those people.
So I want to see the Giants get there. In the AL, the Rays are the team I'd love to see. I just love everything about that team. I think they're just a collection of misfits, and they're just kind of this weird little cobbled up group, but they are incredibly talented. And they got our guy, Boomstick, Nelly Cruz out there, the twin for the last couple of years, and headed on over there. And so I'd want to see him have a lot of success, and let's see him get a ring. That'd be great.
I think that Tampa just kind of shot themselves in the foot last year, so this would be a good year for them to get it. I think doors wide open for Milwaukee. Like you said, whoever comes out of that San Francisco LA series, you're going to have you're going to have a 100+ win team from the National League side. The only team in the American League to win 100 was, I believe, Tampa.
Believe you're right. Yep.
So, and we've gotten rid of the Yankees in quick order. You hate to see it.
Yeah,
you hate to see it.
Yeah.
So Atlanta and Milwaukee. I know that doesn't move the needle, as far as ratings are concerned, and that's why they're playing Game 3 at 10:07 Mountain Time on Monday. It's ridiculous with baseball. They've got so much time on the calendar, and they end up doing this thing where the preliminary rounds of the playoffs interrupt the day of the 9 to 5 worker when they used to play World Series games during the school day, man.
Well, but that day, that's an off day for everyone, right? Columbus Day or Indigenous Persons Day on Monday. So
there we go. Banker's holiday. I work for a company that gives me 6 days off a year, so I don't really think about that.
I am one of those companies that only gives you 6 days off a year. So
Right on. So Sun Devils 11.5-point favorites. I thought it seemed pretty extreme against Stanford. They ended up covering, but it's 28-10. They've been disciplined. I remember looking up at the first quarter scoreboard on Friday. It was like 0 penalty yards. Now for either team, but 0 penalty yards in a quarter for ASU is a crowning achievement.
5 penalties for I think 53 yards in the game is where we ended up, and we got
48 of them came on the final drive.
Yeah, I was just saying we got 3 on the one drive. And
so this is what pisses me off when you're up 18. You're 11.5 point. I saw people get it at 8, but I've got the number 11.5 stuck in my head, and the Pac-12 officiating crew starts to rear their head. The at least 2 of the calls. Now I'm not going to say anything about the celebration when he's on top of the pile. He ends up inadvertently punching a Stanford player, but the roughing the passer call was ticky-tack. The pass interference call was non-existent. So you got 3 15-yard penalties, and 2 of them are just a crock of shit.
Exactly, yeah. And so
you start thinking about the gambling, right? You start thinking about the points. They're going to give them 7 points so they don't cover the 11.5.
Yeah, I mean, Pac-12 after dark, man. Everything goes to hell. It's just that game was a mess from the beginning. It seemed like, as far as that, I shouldn't say it was a mess. ASU played a really just the Herm brand of game, as bland as can be. Just do what you do. Just the defense, just stifle them. They're not going to let you do anything. They're not going to any big plays. They're not going to do. It's not going to be either. You're going to have to string together a 10 to 12 play drive to get a touchdown on us. That's just plain simple. We're not shooting ourselves in the foot. We're not doing all that stupid stuff. And of course, being at home, we're not getting 8 false start penalties like we did at BYU or whatever it was, in that game and that kind of thing. And so they just become a very difficult team to beat when you're allowed to do that. We're when we get out ahead of teams, and then we can just smother you. The one worrisome part that came out of that game, I thought, was that I didn't see. In fact, I had to go back and I went through the play-by-play to see it. Chip Tranum only had 2 carries in the second half. Was on the first drive coming out, and then didn't play the rest of the second half.
Well, they even got a lot of carries.
Yeah, and so we really need Chip. Chip's the thump to that, to those guys lightning. I mean, he's the guy that you want to just go between the tackles and it's like Derrick Henry coming at you, man. You guys make business decisions, you know, and get out of the way, you know.
You know where he came from?
I do.
He's from Akron, Ohio.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about that in college. Yep. Yeah. Really, I did not know that.
So,
how did he get away from Ohio State's grass there?
You know what? I don't think that he wanted to go there. There were offers. There was an offer from the University of Akron. But, yeah, he slipped. I guess Ryan Day didn't go after him, is what it came down to. And congratulations to Arizona State for going into Ohio where you're recruiting against the whole Big Ten.
You were talking about Chip or Derrick Henry. My mistake. Chip Tranum. Yep, I didn't know he was from Akron. Yep, my bad.
Yeah, Derrick Henry, Alabama. I assume he's from Alabama. You know, he went to Alabama and he's from Alabama or at least somewhere in the South.
Chip grew up. I remember his dad was a strength and conditioning coach.
Okay.
And so when Chip got here as like an 18-year-old, I mean, he looked like he looked like he was in the NFL already. I mean, he came in here. His body was not that of an 18-year-old. I mean, it was a man among boys when if you're putting him out there, and so I mean, he's just been that way. You know, like I say, been that power. You know, in that running game, and the offensive line's been great. I mean, I think Kalen Deach has been offensive lineman of the week at least twice this year in 5 games. You know, he's been fantastic. So I mean, you got the offensive line blocking for those guys, and if he's back there, being able to get those tough yards between tackles, man, you see what White does when he gets a little bit of space. You wear defense down a little bit, and man, that guy's gone.
And they find ways. They find ways, you know, in the bubble screens and things like that to get him the ball in different ways to where you're not just asking him to run between the tackles.
And the guy that you mentioned too that kind of gets forgotten there, Nagata. You know, if he's basically kind of somewhat a little bit of a clone of Rashad White, but you know, man, it's fun to see him when he gets in the game. It's a little glimmer of what maybe is going to be next year, like when White's off to probably to the NFL, I'd assume.
I forgot about Badger. I forgot about Badger until I saw him sprinting past the Stanford defense.
Yeah, well, and I mean, there's a lot of weapons on that offense, and a lot of them haven't even really been used. Pearsall's just coming on. Johnny Wilson didn't play this last game. Barely played against UCLA. I think he had 5 plays against UCLA. You know, they thought he'd be our number 1 wide receiver. Bryce Thompson, the Utah transfer. You know, how to catch this game. I think he missed the UCLA game in injury. He's missed a few games early on the season. You know, man, if he starts to get involved, I mean, he was Utah's top receiver, right, you know, last season. So, you know, you start. I mean, that's and none of those guys actually lead our team in catches. Our tight end, Curtis Hodges, which we haven't had a tight end in 7-8 years. I think we've used the tight end in any significant way, and now he's leading our team in catches. So
if you like watching tight ends, go back and watch Friday night's Stanford Arizona State game, because Stanford pretty much exclusively threw to their big tight ends, and with Chase Lucas going out early, looked like a lower back injury from my perspective. With him going out early, you had next man up, and these Stanford tight ends were dragging them down the field, but they weren't dragging them very far. I mean, they obviously had physical mismatches, but Arizona State, played solidly defensively, made tackles, and didn't let a 165 corner give up a 35-pound tight end. Didn't let them run wild against them.
Well, and that's what the defense has done incredibly well, is they don't give up explosion plays. I mean, I think they're one of the few. If they're not number 1 in the country, they're right there of fewest plays over 10 yards allowed. They just don't give up anything. You can catch the ball underneath all you want, and we'll make the tackle in front of us, but we're just not going to let you get downfield. They're going to. Antonio Pierce is, you can see his plan every week is to make you go, 8, 12 play drives. Not every time. If you can do it, good on you. But we don't think you can go that long without us, backing you up. So,
do you see the Sun Devils representing the Pac-12 in the Rose Bowl?
I can see a path to it. Yes. This game this week obviously is, I think, probably the defining one. I remember I was talking to my PJ, the other half, the Crafty Devils there, and we're talking about UCLA, and he said, this is probably the biggest game of the year. And I had to agree with him, and I listened to the Speak of the Devils podcast, and the Joe Healy did that one up better. He said this might be the biggest game of the Herm era. Well, I think you kind of can shift that right over to this Utah game now, because you see UCLA kind of maybe fumbles a little bit here. They kind of get down a peg, and maybe they're not quite as good as we thought they were in the South. Well, the one team that still is right there, they're still undefeated in the Pac-12, is Utah. They're still 2-0 in the Pac-12. We know they have 2 losses non-conference, so they still have everything in it. So coming to this, getting that win over them, puts us in that league dot spot. And past this, what you thought were going to be tough games, Washington, SC, all of a sudden they don't look that tough,
Well, every game is going to become the biggest game once you get past what you believe to be the biggest hurdle, because you can't get trapped. You can't lose a game if you're Arizona State or really anybody in the Pac-12.
Well, and that's the key is so I think it does set up really well for us, because this game, you see it in front of you. We know what's coming here. We know what they're like. We know what they're going to do. They are getting better. They, like I said, they seem to be improving every week, and with their quarterback play, they're going to be a real strong team, and they're always going to have good defense. They're always going to be big on the lines. They're going to beat you up. They're going to make it difficult on you. Winningham always has those guys playing well. Always has a well coached team. So it won't be easy, but yeah, I definitely think we're the better team. I think from what I see overall from us, our defense ranks in the top 20 in the country, almost every category. Our offense, I think, is as explosive as we want to be. I think when we want to unleash it, it's there. I think you saw something against UCLA. Big plays abounded. I think there's times that we, almost just kind of pull it in and go really, really simple, really basic, and don't really take advantage of all the weapons that we do have. And I think it's somewhat by design. We want to just control the game. And it's the games that we've really seen, or the last few games. Well, they haven't been necessarily blowouts. It was games that at least from my perspective, never felt threatened in. It was like we controlled the game, and like there was never a point where the other team was like, "Oh, this is like never close." Like we just owned the game, from beginning to end. The BYU game, to be honest with you, we felt like we could have owned that game at any moment. We just could not stop shooting ourselves in the foot.
Right.
First half, we couldn't do anything right. We got our stuff together in the second half, and then you had that almost pick six that turns into a turnover for them, and they go down, they score, kind of flip the whole thing, and then we just couldn't get out of our way.
And that's the thing about college football. It's rough. You could have a bad moment in September, and it could eat at you the rest of the way. Do you figure that the Pac-12 will calculate into this year's Final Four, the college football playoffs?
It doesn't seem that way. I just don't see enough of what we could do because the team we'd have to beat some quality teams, and I just don't. Depends on where Utah ends up, but they already have 2 losses. We beat them, that'd be 3 losses for them, so they're going to get docked for that. So they would have maybe the one shot.
So you're saying Arizona State couldn't have the resume even with a perhaps undefeated season?
Correct. Because your best BYU's right now is probably the top team we played. We get to the Pac-12 championship, we get Oregon. That'd be the best case scenario, right? They're still ranked, and they only have 1 loss to that point. They don't lose again this year. They could be a team that's in the top 15, at that time. And that's going to be it. That's your signature, win there.
It's a lack of West Coast quality out of conference opponents.
Yeah, and I'm hearing them kind of talk about that early in the season, that our kind of a weak non-conference schedule this year, which didn't really, you didn't really go into this year. You book these things so far out in advance. You don't know that. UNLV is going to be absolute just trash. When you book that game with them,
right.
8 years ago, BYU was a quality game, but then they turn around and they lose to a 2-loss Boise State team, or 2 or 3-loss Boise State team.
Well, Boise State's just screwing the state of Utah left and right. They beat Utah State one week, and my buddy watched the game on CBS. He's like, "You think that you think you were watching Merlin Olsen call this game the way that they were so heartbroken about Utah State's undefeated season falling apart, and then they reckoned for the true contender." So, you got to say Cincinnati's probably the Group of 5 representative at this point.
I don't know how they couldn't be.
They could be a playoff team.
Yeah.
And they should be if they finish undefeated.
Absolutely. And Luke Finkel?
Luke Finkel, yeah.
If USC's not on his, they don't have his number yet. They definitely should be finding it because, if you want to go the retread Urban Meyer route, I think that's a name that definitely should be on their short list.
Yeah, I think that he should be the number one candidate for any job that's worth having that's open. And, fortunately, I don't think that he's going to have to deal with the temptation of Michigan as long as Harbaugh doesn't have a late October, November collapse.
I saw a funny thing today. It said ESPN bowl projections, and they had us versus Michigan in the Rose Bowl, which would be the irony being there is that the one Rose Bowl win ASU has is over Michigan in 1987 by the John Harbaugh led team. And so it's
the John Cooper led team.
Well, no, Harbaugh was the quarterback of the team.
Okay, I got you.
The Michigan team, that was the game where the ASU fans got a penalty called on them because they were too loud.
Oh, Michigan was a bunch of pansies in the 80s about that. I think that Ohio State lost the game, and it was after Michigan had already lost to Iowa. They played like a 12-10 game. Iowa, Chuck Long goes to the Rose Bowl with Iowa in 85, and Ohio State fans just they took the penalty and then they end up shaking their keys because Harbaugh comes back on the field, and Harbaugh always denied that he went to Bo and had Bo insinuate that penalty.
Yeah.
But, it's just when I watch him coach, whether it was with the Niners or, Stanford or where he's at with Michigan now, I always found that he would rat a friend out for, not following the rules in grade school. Even now, if you just remembered, he was picking his nose during lunch on October 5th, 1981.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. I just always remember him at Stanford. When they turned that thing around. The huge upset versus SC. I think they were a 40-point dog.
41-point dog. Davita Pritchard, the third-string quarterback. So I think it was a couple of years before Luck came through.
Yep. Just insane. And then when he has Andrew Luck and they go to SC, this is the Pete Carroll. SC is the coolest place on earth. Trojans. Snoop Dogg, Will Ferrell, everybody hanging out with them there and stuff. And he goes into there and they beat them. And then I think I think he punched in a touchdown right at the end, even though they're up 14 or something like that. And that was the Pete Carroll after the game, hey, what's your deal, man? He's going after him. And Pete's running him down because John just or Harbaugh's just running off the field, they just take it off like that. I'm out of here. And he's chasing. What's your deal, man? This is so funny.
Cardinals got the Browns next weekend in Cleveland. This is the bonus game that gets, this is pretty much the 17th game. Everybody has this other random cross-conference opponent. And I looked at I had this penciled in as a win for Cleveland going into the season. But since nobody's beaten the Cardinals, I don't think that I have the same level of confidence that I did about this game in August for my Cleveland Browns against the hometown Cardinals game, again, going to be in Cleveland on the 17th.
What do you think the Browns are right now as far as best teams in the league?
I think they're behind Buffalo. I watched the Sunday game and I came away thinking that they'll outplay the Chargers when it counts. I think a lot of the mistakes were mistakes that are indicative of first half of the season games. I think that they'll have everything cleaned up and they win this same game by 2 touchdowns in December.
Yeah, I think they're a really good team. I took away from that Vikings game. When you guys played us just 2 weeks ago. Last week. Okay, and I everything gets all scrambled sometimes on the weekends.
I had a long Friday night too, brother.
But I knew going in there, and I felt like watching you guys earlier this season that you guys are a really good team. You gotta have you guys are, again, a really strong defense team. Stefanski's got you guys running the offense. It's just great. Baker looks fantastic with the play action. The running game is the downhill, like what I saw for her with the Vikings. We're going to mash you with the running back after running back, and then boom, play action goes over your head, and you got the weapons outside to be able to do that, especially when Landry gets back which I need him back because he's on my IR.
I think Baker needs him back too. I think that he's the glue guy on the offensive side of the ball. In fact, if I had this cosmic choice to where I could only have Landry or only have Beckham on the field,
Landry every time.
I want Landry every time. I think the Browns still lack that number one weapon. I believe that they want either Anthony Schwartz out of Auburn or Donovan Peoples-Jones in his second year out of Michigan to be that guy that gets it done. So we'll see how it plays out, but they can't make they can't have the letdowns. You can't have a receiver behind the safety twice in one game, and that's how San Diego gets there. Look what I did, San Diego. They've been gone for years now, but the Chargers the Chargers did not let the Browns get away with not playing a safety deep enough.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the game next week. Cardinals in Cleveland. You said
it is.
That's. I mean, it's great because I do think the Browns are one of the best teams in the league. Certainly top five for sure. And the Cardinals just keep on showing up. I think you talked about Vance Joseph's changes there. I think even the obvious ones, J.J. Watt adding them, but I think adding John Connor. I think adding DJ Humphries at center.
And A.J. Green made a great play the week before.
And I don't even necessarily mean of what they're producing on the field. I think bringing those guys in the locker room has helped Cliff immensely. Because now, Cliff coming from college, we talked about kind of the struggles you can have sometimes there. Mm-hmm. And you saw that play out his first couple of years in the league. He was... You got to deal with NFL locker rooms differently than you do college locker rooms.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about putting the bus in reverse and doing the Herm Edwards route where you take basically nothing but NFL experience. Right? A grad assistant at San Jose or Cal back in the day. But, spent his entire life in the National Football League, and then he, like we talked about, the role of the college head coach, becomes the CEO of a program that just really has kind of been, unable to get to that highest gear.
Yeah.
They've had some good teams. They haven't done it consistently, and they haven't been in the national conversation since Jake Plummer was there.
Yeah, and I mean, that was the NFL model they want to bring in here and that. I mean, it's not the NFL model. Look at it. Ohio State's been had the same model for forever. Nick Saban runs this. Like all the top programs in the country run what the NFL model kind of thing, right? And it's just a matter of bringing in guys. Essentially what he's saying is he's not over there on the play sheet making calls. Okay, he's going to bring in guys that are really good at what they do and let them do the thing. That's the model he's talking about. I think the one advantage that he had was he has gone from the NFL for quite a long time. For 10 years, I think he had been gone from the NFL. And not only had been at ESPN, so he's still somewhat involved in it, but he had been working, doing, those elite high school clinics, not just the quarterback clinics, but like the full,
and not at Bishop Sycamore.
Right, yeah, not at Bishop Sycamore, but he'd been doing those for a good number of years. So he'd seen high school kids coming up, the guys that are just going into college, the top prospects in the country, and he'd been around the other college coaches, etc. He'd seen how guys get recruited. He'd seen all those kind of things. So I think he had a lot of understanding of that. Than just saying, Mike Zimmer, heading to college. I don't think that would go that well, and that kind of thing. So I think that was a big advantage for him, and how that transition worked out. I don't know that everyone would do it, quite as well as he's done. I guess I assume I feel like he's doing well, at least. That we're a more relevant team now than I think we've been in quite some time.
Just got to get that Pac-12 network onto DirecTV.
You don't even know, man. You don't even know.
Preaching to the choir.
Dude, I can remember I was visiting my niece in Houston a couple of years ago. We had a big game. I think we were playing Colorado. We were playing really well at the time. This is probably 4 years ago. We literally have to call bars in Houston. Do you guys get the Pac-12 network? Yep. Okay. And I'm like, but do you? I'm like, are you sure? Have you looked? Because I bet you don't. And yeah, we get there and like, no, you don't have the Pac-12 network. We went to like 4 different bars, and like no one gets the Pac-12 network at the bars. It's like,
that's almost as bad as when I went to Vegas and I go to this Browns bar called the Boulevard. It's right across from the South Point Hotel, way south. And there's a place called the Boulevard. The guy that owns it, lived probably a mile and a half from where I grew up, and it's an all Cleveland bar. Jen and I go up there, and we got our Brown stuff on, and we got the Raiders-Patriots game on the screen. This is fall of 2020, and I'm like, Browns? And they're like, we didn't get the package because of the pandemic. We didn't know people were coming into the bars, so they had no Sunday ticket anywhere on Las Vegas Boulevard in 2020 because of the threat of not having the clientele and having this $70,000 DirecTV bill to pay.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's painful to try to explain to people why we're not on TV. I mean, even people that live on the West Coast can't watch your product. I mean, it's brutal, man.
I'm trying to think of what I would pay per month to just be able to watch it on the small screen.
I pay $35 for Sling, so I can watch the Pac-12 because a lot of our basketball games end up on there. I wouldn't really do it because most of the time our football games are going to be on networks, or I'll be there. But our basketball is almost always on the Pac-12 network, it seems like, or a lot of the games will be on there. So it's like, I gotta kind of.
I don't know what channel it would even be if I were in a house that had Cox Cable or Sling, I guess, to be able to watch it.
Yeah,
so
it's just so bad, so terrible. So we have a new commissioner now. I don't know if you've heard that. And
yeah, I tweeted that. I told him he needed to get on DirecTV.
Yeah, and hopefully he doesn't suck. And can.
Did Larry Scott suck?
Yeah, Larry Scott sucked.
Okay.
Yeah, he was god awful. Look at where we when he came into the Pac-12 was probably really the peak of the Pac-12. In recent decades. You had SC as the powerhouse. Oregon was the hot team. The cool uniforms, Nike U, the whole thing. You had UCLA was going to Final Four after Final Four. You had all the programs were really doing. We really overall as a conference kind of relevant. We haven't been in the playoff for years. Had some teams.
Was
make
it
some
Washington
runs.
beat Florida State in the inaugural one, and Oregon beat Florida State, and then they lost to Ohio State in the first college football playoff, and then you had Washington. I believe they lost to an SEC school.
Alabama, I think.
Yeah,
and they got housed. Yeah.
So, and that's been, and it's not like the Big 12 has really shown up that well. The only ones to score any points in the college football playoff are Ohio State. Michigan State made one appearance. They got shut out. Ohio State got shut out.
Oklahoma's been, had some teams that get there. They're always, flashy. They're Heisman after
Are they
Heisman.
in the playoffs this year?
Someone's got to beat them. I don't know who it is. But
It should have been. It felt like it should have been Tulane.
I know. Like, they should have lost, 3 games by now. I just don't understand it. It's like, God, someone's got to, finish them off. Like, you got to be kidding me. But, maybe not. If they keep winning, I guess. It's like they're going to put probably 12 guys in the NFL. So, yeah, you probably got to put them in there, I guess, maybe.
Who's favored to win the Pac-12 in basketball?
It's a good question. I would imagine it's still, Oregon's always going to have, a ton of talent there. U of A is going to, they're reloading, pretty well down there. Cronin out in UCLA is dangerous. He keeps on adding guys and keeps on building a nice team out there. I'm excited to see this team Hurley put together because this team, just from what the players are talking about and what media people have seen from them, and that is really a stark contrast to, while last year's roster might have been one of the most talented rosters maybe that we've ever had in the program, it just never came together in any way, shape, or form. It was a whole bunch of just garbage, and you kind of saw it, and players kind of, I think, but Remy completely checked out, at some point there. He just seemed like almost no interest towards the end of the season. And the difference between that year to this year, it seems like, is this team seems like a team. I haven't obviously seen them, but from anything I've read from people that are at those practices, or even the players are talking about the 3 kind of holdovers: Lawrence, Graham, and the other guy. God, and it's somebody I know too.
Is it White?
White? No, Romelo's. He went to Mississippi.
You can tell how closely I follow the Sun Devil basketball program.
Yeah, it's somebody I should absolutely know too. And I just am drawing a complete blank. Anyway, so Bagley coming back. So those three guys talking about the difference from there. That I mean, even they're just like it's almost they're almost a breath of fresh air, and they're just happy, like they're not worried about like this team. Like no, this is we're a team. Like this is actually a good team. We enjoy being around each other. We're having fun out there. Like, and you hear Hurley talk about this team. He doesn't talk about like how prolific they are and getting transition and stuff like that. What he talks about is like, man, this is like guys on the ground, every loose ball, every they're doing dirty work stuff. That's what when you hear him reference like what the team is like, it's like, well, that sounds kind of different. That seems like a team that you could do something with. So that's so I'm excited to see them, and see what they're going to do. And
your road trips planned for the basketball season?
I don't really go to road basketball games. I've only been to so I went to Kansas, went to Fog Allen when we played there because I mean.
And they rewarded you for
I know, and it was amazing. I got a selfie with Trey Holder right after the game on the court. It was pretty awesome. So that was.
And when do you turn 17?
Right, I know.
I should say 22 because I know that you've been drinking beer for at least a year.
It was necessary. I had to do it. So I go to a lot of road college football games because college football stadiums are destinations. I mean, like I'm unfathomably excited about going to Death Valley at LSU when we play there. Unfathomably excited to go to the Swamp when we play there in a number of years. I think we have Oklahoma State next year even. Stillwater's fun. Going to different stadiums. Going to Georgia, going to places like that. College football has those. It's an experience there. College basketball, you don't really. I mean, I don't know. There's not really other than really Fog Allen was the one I wanted to go to. And when we had the chance to go there, it's like absolutely we're going to do that. I would maybe go to head out to UCLA, Pauley, do that would be a fun one to hit someday. But I don't really go out of my way to plan those necessarily.
Yeah, just as they tend to come up. Well, I was going to talk until the festivities in Game 3 ended in Boston, but they are currently in the top of the 13th. He's Adam Blomker, co-founder of the Crafty Devils, and based on what we've heard tonight, no one will ever accuse him of not being a great Sun Devil fan. Go Devils.
Thank you. Go Devils.
All right, we're out.
The game's still going on, huh?
It is.
It's unbelievable.
So before I left.
That is unbelievable.